That's the bell for me right there. That right there is the ultimate bell as we kick off the now unmuted schedule release of the Sacramento Miners 2023 season. Um, apologize for the technical difficulty. It seems that lately, every time I log out and log back in, the audio input and output gets switched up. And when I logged back in today, I didn't check. And so there we are. I think I went probably 2 minutes in. I'm reading through the comments, which I wasn't looking at because I was too busy getting the itinerary and everything ready for you guys. And so now I'm laughing at myself and laughing at people in the chat laughing at me. So one thing that you've learned, I have no problems whatsoever laughing at myself. That's what makes for interesting perspective. That's what makes for good personality. That's what makes for fun, to be perfectly honest. I know I get on a lot of you guys from time to time because I don't feel like you are the same. And it's frustrating because not everyone has the ability to accept when they've done something foolish or accept when they've done something wrong. And rather than just accept it and smack your hand on your face or bell yourself or take a sip, you get defensive. So that is one thing that I try never to do. And I try to preach to all of you to improve on, get better at, work on, try to build strength in. That's probably, I guess that's my Miners Live PSA for the day. Be open and understanding of when you are wrong, or at least when you're not right. Because yes, there is a difference. And at the very minimum, when you've done something stupid or done something silly and foolish and you screwed up. And that's what happened here for those of you that are just now tuning in and don't understand what I'm talking about. The first minute and a half, probably maybe 2 minutes of the show, I did completely on mute. And I laugh at myself for it. And it's funny. And we see people do it all the time. So yes, but welcome in now, finally, that I'm not on mute. I appreciate all of you tuning in. I really don't give you guys a lot of notice at this point with when I'm going to be going live and the things I'm going to be doing, because a lot of times it's very spontaneous and sporadic for me. Now that we are getting closer and closer to the season, I'm not doing the show regularly weekly, but what I'm doing is just more general live content for important things that are coming up. So you saw a couple weeks ago when I posted the captains, the offensive and defensive captains. For those of you that still weren't aware, the offensive captains for the upcoming 2023 season: tight end Anthony Fry, running back Damani Manuel, and wide receiver Buck Ulbrich. And then the defensive captains for this upcoming season: safety Derek Oliveros. This is his first time as a captain, as it is with Anthony Fry. And then also on the defensive side, captains Antonio Griggs and Last Chance at the cornerback position. He was a first-time captain last season. So I'm really trying to just get you guys that content as it comes up, not just necessarily push things for the sake of pushing it. So I'm not going to go over the combine stuff. There's been a lot of people that have talked about the combine. I kind of keep a lot of that tight-lipped and close to the vest. I know the things that I want to do for the combine. I know the positions that I want to scout for the combine. I know the attributes and the traits and the things that the combine is going to give me to help me, rank the players that might potentially end up on the Miners roster based on position, based on archetype, based on whatever it might be. So I'm not really going to go into all of that combine stuff. There will probably be a ton of more combine talk later tonight on the RFL podcast. So be sure to check that out if you want to get more in depth and, more entrenched with the combine. For many of you, this is new. This is really exciting. This is not something that you've been through before. What I can tell you is this is the most exciting time of the year. I have said this before and I will say it again. The most exciting day on the RFL calendar is day one of the RFL draft. I don't care about anything else. There's no other day on the calendar that you can even come close to winning an argument with me over if you think it's more exciting than day one of the RFL draft. I don't care about week one of the college series. I don't care about the national championship of the college series. Those don't compare. Combine results being dropped was super exciting the last week. Doesn't compare. Nothing compares to day one of the RFL draft. And we are at that point. We're about a week and a half away. We're basically a week away at this point. So, nose to the grindstone. It's time to get down to the nitty gritty. But there will be a lot of combine talk, I'm sure, on the RFL podcast tonight. But for tonight, if you guys have some particular questions, breaking here, Smitty's saying the RFL podcast might be in question tonight. So apologies if I got your hopes up there, guys. There is a chance that there will not be an RFL podcast tonight. So stay tuned for that. As of right now, if you have some particular questions that you would like me to address about the combine, I will do so. But again, I'm not going to go too deep into much. But if you want to ask me a couple questions, I get it. Many of you, again, you're going through this for the first time. You've never seen this, the combine, the draft, the anticipation, all of it. If you have questions from me on what, I think, what I'm looking for, what I'm doing, what Fry and I are doing behind the scenes. For many of you that don't know Fry, yes, he's a captain. Yes, he's the starting tight end, but he's also my scouting director. So I put a lot on him when it comes to this time of year because there's just a lot going on. So if you guys do have some questions and you want me to go into a little bit of the combine stuff, I will. But really, this show is centered on the schedule and the upcoming schedule for the 2023 season. So without any further ado, here's a look at the 2023 Sacramento Miners regular season schedule. We kick things off with a doozy. I'm sure many of you already saw this because the Chicago Cougars had put out their regular season schedule already. And Mix and I have known this for a while. Obviously, we have been talking about this for a while. I will just tell you, this is must-see TV on week one. And I would imagine that I haven't looked at all of the week one matchups, but I would imagine there's a pretty good chance that this game is not only prime time, but also, one of the feature games. So week one at the Chicago Cougars, we've only played the Cougars one other time since I have been general manager of the team. That was 2 years ago. We played the Cougars and they won. I think the final of that game was 26-24 or 27-25. It was a very close game. Came down to the end. Cougars were able to pull it out. So week one on the road at Chicago, and this isn't breaking news, but there's a good chance that there will be a rookie quarterback making his RFL debut on the road at Chicago in week one. So not great for whoever that rookie quarterback might be to get thrown to the Wolves, or in this case, thrown to the Cougars on the road in week one, but certainly a game that you're going to want to stay tuned and be a part of. I know that Mix and I are going to have a lot more back and forth, a lot more dialogue, a lot more conversation between now and then. So stay tuned and we'll see what that looks like. Week 2, again, on the road at Salt Lake City. Week 3 is an automatic win for us. For those of you that are unfamiliar, the automatic wins are games where there is an NFL team on the schedule. So, again, some of you might not realize this, but the RFL is, because of the way that Madden is structured right now, the RFL is put together on 2 separate files, one file for the ARC, one file for the NRC. And so on the ARC file, there's going to be those 4 crossover games. Actually, now I think there's 5 crossover games. And so week 3, week 11, week 12, week 13, and week 17 are the automatic wins. And then week 9, which you will also not see up there, is the bye week. So week 1 on the road against the Chicago Cougars, week 2 at the Salt Lake City Pioneers. Week 3, again, is that automatic win. Week 4, again, on the road. So 3 straight RFL games on the road at Chicago, at Salt Lake City, and at San Antonio. So the season, it doesn't seem to, at least on paper, start out very easy. San Antonio was always a difficult opponent. Last year, both games went down to the wire. I believe both games went to overtime last year, and I ended up coming away with a victory by a field goal in overtime in a game that San Antonio and Coach Frankie will tell you they should have won. I believe both of them were Hail Mary passes with under a minute left that got us down to like the 5-yard line with, again, under a minute left. We scored a touchdown to tie it and then went to overtime and won it. It was very exciting. It was one of those games that was kind of boring and slow moving throughout the course of the game, but the final quarter was very exciting, and then obviously into overtime. So week 1, week 2, week 4, all on the road. Week 5 is the very first home game of the season for us, and that is the Houston Voyagers. Week 6, we get the Austin Armadillos. So the Austin Armadillos, big contest there. Many of you know Chumlee is no longer the quarterback of this team. He has been traded to the Austin Armadillos. So week 6 is a very interesting matchup because it will be the first time that Chumlee goes against his former team. The good news is it will be home for us in Sacramento, and it'll be our second home game of the season. So week 6, home to the Austin Armadillos. Week 7 will be the second game against the San Antonio Dreadnoughts. That one will be at home. Week 8, we go on the road. And this is where I'm a little bit excited for 2 reasons here. Week 8 at the Portland River Hogs. Excitement for me comes in 2 forms. One, because as long as I have been the head coach and general manager of the team, we have not faced the Portland River Hogs. On top of that, the Portland River Hogs now have a user head coach. So that's also exciting. It's always exciting when you're going against other user coaches. So the 2 teams on the schedule this year that we did not face last year, I believe there's actually only 2 teams. I think we are playing the same division as we played last year. Let me see. Now, Salt Lake City and Portland are 2 teams that we did not face last season. So super excited to face Coach Q and the River Hogs. That'll be in week 8. Again, because it's a user coach versus a user coach, there's a decent chance that might be a primetime game. So stay tuned for that one. Then week 9, as I mentioned earlier, is the bye week. Week 10, we're back at home against the London Bulldogs. Now, the London Bulldogs went from basically worst to first. 2 years ago, not very good. 3 first-round picks in the draft. And then, what do you know, last year, arguably the best team in the conference. So that'll certainly be an exciting game. To be honest with you, I am tired of playing the London Bulldogs. I'm not looking forward to that contest. Those games are usually very defense and ground game focused. So you can pretty much expect that week 10 matchup against the London Bulldogs will be a ground and pound. Don't be surprised if a turnover at the end of the game is the difference. So keep your eyes on that one. Again, user versus user. So that could be a primetime game. And then the week 11, week 12, week 13, those are all automatic wins. And then week 14, we get our first game against the Oklahoma City Bisons. That will be in Sacramento at home. Week 15, we've got the road tilt against Chumlee. Week 16, we're back home for the San Diego Red Dragons. And then we close out the season. Week 17 is the auto win. And then we close out on the road at the Oklahoma City Bisons. So that is the schedule for the season. I'll take a quick peek over into the chat and see what you guys have to say. Anything that sticks out in your mind on this schedule or something that you are going to be looking forward to. Yeah, I'm sure we could get 32 relocation teams using a mod, but as you've seen throughout the last couple seasons, Cam, I don't think there's anyone that really loves using a mod. I think it just works out better this way because quite honestly, the only time that I can think of, and again, maybe someone in the front office, certainly Smitty would be able to tell you more, but the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head that stands out as a problem is that when we get to the Relo Bowl, we're unable to actually do it in the same file, like within the file. It has to be done separately because obviously the seasons are played on two different files. So again, hopefully next year's Madden, EA will give us that opportunity. I don't know. This is a good question. So this is a question for Smitty, obviously. Do you have an approximate date for RFL kickoff? I haven't heard anything. I know Smitty was in the chat here. He might know more. He might be holding that close to the vest as well. It might have a lot to do with how the draft goes, how long it takes to, get everything situated with players on teams, and any other, visual things that he needs to get prepared for the draft. I believe, if memory serves, the conversations that were had a while back were just after the new year. I want to say that first week in January seems like a target date. So keep an eye on that. I would anticipate no later than like that second week in January. Uniform changes. Great question. So no, there will be no uniform changes. The uniforms will remain the same, which is that uniform that you see on the screen there from TJ Metcalf. The Miners uniform options are not my favorite. I wanted to switch them last year and I didn't because the other ones I just don't like. I think they look very plain. I like how the sleeves on this one have the navy and the gold. I like how it has the navy piping around the collar. And the other ones I just didn't like. I think one of them has the sort of like paint splatter look where there's like nothing on the sleeves and it's just paint splatter in navy on a white jersey or paint splatter in gold on the navy jersey. And I don't like that. So this to me is really the only option when it comes to uniforms. And we will try to there's always one game a year. It has to be a home game because we'll have to be wearing our Navy uniform. We'll have to be wearing our Navy jerseys. There's usually one game a year where I request of Smitty or Mix, whoever's doing the game, on a primetime game where we do our color rush, which is when we wear the navy blue jerseys and the navy blue pants. That usually happens like I said, once a week. Once a year, or in maybe some case it would happen twice if it was something crazy. Um, but it's really cool. I try to coordinate with the other coach if it's another team that's a user coach, so that if they have the option of doing a color rush as well, like a white on white or something like a red on red or whatever the case might be, a gray on gray, that they could do the gray on gray and we would do the blue on blue, and we would have that the color rush theme. But it's difficult. I actually don't know if it can be edited for both teams, how they have it set up for the broadcast. So hopefully there will be one game, yes, where we do have uniform changes in the sense that we'll have the color rush and we'll have the navy blue on navy blue. Ryan LeCavalier, week 5 is interesting. I feel Coach Dunn would want to put on a show against the Voyagers. Listen, I want to put on a show against every team. However, as much as I might come across as confident, and yes, we have won the division 2 years in a row, and yes, I will use that as motivation, and yes, I will use that in debate and argument and conversation with other coaches. However, I also know that AJ Pestock was a superstar middle linebacker for this team last year. Chum Lee was a superstar quarterback for this team last year in terms of depth, right? Let me be clear. Neither one of those players are here anymore. One of the offensive captains, one of the defensive captains are no longer on the team. So yeah, I want to go out and I want to put on a show against every team. However, the Voyagers are once again probably going to have one of the top 3 or 4 offenses in the ARC. Fortunately for me, we have had a top 3 or 4 defense in the ARC for the last couple of years. I don't think that this year is going to be a year where the Sacramento Miners are winning games 45-42 or 40-37. I don't foresee that happening. I would love to be proved wrong, but again, it all goes back to starting a rookie quarterback. I don't know who our quarterback is going to be right now. I have no idea who our quarterback is going to be right now, and the season starts in less than a month. So that's a little bit unnerving. The fact that A, I'm probably starting a rookie, B, I have no idea who that is, and C, I don't have a lot of time to get familiar with that particular player and see how they're going to play with our scheme and around the rest of this team. So as much as I might want to put on a show, I understand and I'm realistic in the expectations for what this season is. I would love to win the division for the 3rd consecutive year. I'd be curious. This is a question I don't know because I've only been in the league for 2 full seasons now. I'd be curious to know, has anyone won their division 3 years in a row? Is there anyone that is also maybe the Austin Desperados? I think they won the division 2 years in a row. I'm curious how many teams have won their division 3 years in a row. That being said, I think the Austin Armadillos in the ARC are going to be a better team with Chum Lee at quarterback. I think that the San Antonio Dreadnoughts are going to be a better team because they've gotten more experience from some of their skill positions, their younger guys at skill positions. Owen Jack might be that starting quarterback, and he's got a year under his belt now. Cam Perkins has a year under his belt now. So there's a little bit more development. So they're going to be a little bit better in certainly the offensive skill position category. And so I don't know. I feel like the ARC South is a division that is completely wide open and unknown at this point. I would love to win the division. If you told me we won the division, I would be pleasantly surprised. If you told me we finished in last place, I would be pissed. but I don't think that I would say, oh my God, this season was an absolute, disaster. I don't even know who the quarterback is right now. So could I envision a scenario where the quarterback comes in as a rookie and has some struggles? Yes, absolutely. Even if I didn't have to worry about that, the Cougars, that's a difficult matchup. The Dreadnoughts, difficult. Voyagers, difficult. So there's 4 games right there where I could envision losing. Then we go to the other side. The Bulldogs, I could certainly envision a scenario where we lose. And then maybe we lose 1 game against Oklahoma City. That's 6 losses right there. Right? So I don't, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this schedule is very favorable and we're going to run away with the division and we're going to get a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed and we're going to head to the playoffs like we have the last 2 years. I've been very open and honest with everyone on what my expectations are for this season and what I think this season is going to look like. So if we're in a position to make the playoffs, fantastic. If we're not, I completely understand. If this team isn't able to make the playoffs this year, I'm going to be bummed. I'm going to be upset. I'm going to feel like there's something I could have done. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot of youth and a lot of rookies playing important roles for this team. And while, yes, you might think, well, then why did you get rid of AJ Pestock? Why did you get rid of Chum Lee? I got rid of those guys because, one, AJ Pestock is getting up there in age. He's starting to regress. And more than anything, he was going to be a free agent at the end of this season. And Chum Lee, I just didn't feel like Chum Lee was the quarterback that was going to put this team in a position to consistently play in the Relo Bowl. Sure, this team could have been in contention to win the division every year. However, it wasn't good enough to get through the gauntlet that is the postseason. Winning the division just isn't good enough anymore. You have to, it's not good enough to be a quote unquote contender, because technically if you make the playoffs, right, you're a contender. I went into last season and there wasn't any part of me that felt like our team was better than any other team or better than all of the other teams. Did I think we could beat the Sentinels in the first round? Of course. Of course I did. We beat them in week 1, but they completely changed up their offense. If you remember, they completely changed their offensive scheme. And so I felt it was in the team's best interest and in the organization's best interest to, one, move on from AJ Pestock to get younger, and also move on from Chum Lee, not necessarily to get younger because he's only 27, but more than anything to get more dynamic. I just felt like Chum Lee was good, but not great. And at best, he was great, but he was never going to be spectacular. And in order to be a perennial powerhouse in the RFL, you have to have guys that are spectacular in certain areas. And I would like to have, and I think other coaches will tell you, and I think if you're watching the league for your second, third, fourth, fifth season, you'll notice a trend. The teams that win the Relo Bowl have spectacular play from the quarterback position. Week in and week out. Maybe there's a down week here and there. That's it. The issue that the Miners have had, the issue that I have had, is that Chum Lee will throw 3 touchdowns and no interceptions one week, and then the following week he'll have 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions and a fumble lost. And I just didn't like having the inconsistency. There's another one here. Would you have been able to keep Chum Lee as a placeholder to develop your rookie draft pick QB? The answer to that question is yes, of course. I absolutely could have kept Chumlee. However, I wasn't going to keep AJ Pestock, and I wanted to maximize the number of first round draft picks that I had, right? I want as many first round draft picks as I can possibly get. And so getting rid of Chumlee got me another first round pick. Certainly I could have, that would have been a late first round pick, I believe it was. Could I have kept a late first round pick, kept Chumlee and used the late first round pick on a quarterback? Absolutely. But I also am of the mindset that when I draft a quarterback, I'm drafting him to play. I don't really want to draft a quarterback and have him sit for 4, 5, 6 seasons. That's just not my thing. Let me see. What else do we got? Is there a player? Here's one from Killian Bain. Is there a player that you are excited to see this year possibly have a breakout season? That's a great question. I would say, I would say at middle linebacker, Kenny Forrester. I would say that Kenny Forrester, who was the 12th pick in the second round last year, I believe. He was the 44. Yeah, he was pick 44 overall, which is why he wears the number 44. Kenny Forrester didn't get a ton of playing time last year. He actually bounced back and forth a little bit between outside linebacker and middle linebacker. And now that AJ Pestock is gone, Kenny Forrester is going to get a lot more run at middle linebacker. And I think that's the better spot for him. So I am excited to see what Kenny Forrester can do. I was excited with him coming out of Texas. Those of you that have been around for a while, remember the lumberjack, right? Kenny Forrester at Texas. So I would say Kenny Forrester is probably the guy that I'm most excited for, certainly on defense when it comes to potentially having a breakout season. And honestly, I guess if I'm looking at a player on offense to have a breakout season, I'm going to say Anthony Fry, because he missed 5 games last year, 5 or 6 games last year with injury, and still was able to put up the numbers that he put up. So, if Fry is able to stay healthy, I can envision a scenario where he scores 8, 9, 10 touchdowns. I think he had 7 or 8 touchdowns last year, and he only played in 13 games, I believe. 12, maybe 12 games. So I would say biggest names that I'm looking for breakouts: offense, give me Anthony Fry at tight end. And then defense, give me Kenny Forrester at middle linebacker. I think there's some other guys. There's some guys that you guys aren't even familiar with. Chad Heath, who was acquired in the Chumlee trade. So Chumlee went to Austin, and in return, we got a first round pick, and we also got middle linebacker Chad Heath, who is also going to play alongside Kenny Forrester. Those are probably going to be the 2 middle linebackers. And then also at outside linebacker, Ann Burley, obviously not going anywhere, superstar stud. And the opposite outside linebacker, Gabe Gales, right now, who was acquired in the AJ Pestock trade. So when I got rid of Chumlee and I got rid of AJ Pestock, not only did I get some draft pick capital in return, but I also got players who are capable of stepping in and being starters right away. So that's why those trades made sense for me. I know a lot of people look at the Toronto Huskies roster and say, oh my God, like, look at what they were able to do this offseason. Okay, that's fine. But it made sense for me and for the Miners and what we are trying to do moving forward. It's not good enough to win the division every year and get bounced in the first round. It's not fun at all. And it's even less fun when it gets thrown in your face by the front office, right? Like, it's just not fun. I can put a feather in my cap and say, hey, we've won the division 2 years in a row. And I expect to get a little bit of credit for that. And if you don't want to give me any credit for that because you're more focused on the fact that we got bounced in the first round, well, then I think you're just being a Debbie Downer and a bit of a pessimist. Give the man a little bit of love. You guys know who I'm talking about too. Tired of getting no love. I requested some love in a trade recently and I still got none. Let's see. We got a few more. I'm probably only going to keep you guys another 5, maybe 10 minutes. So, I mean, look, I'm even getting blasted by the front office. Too many lost players in important positions. Yeah, look, I'm not sitting here saying that this team is a contender to win the Relo Bowl. If we are, well, then, the dominoes fell in the right place. And, I will consider myself very fortunate. But yeah, we lost a middle linebacker. That's a key position. We lost a quarterback. That's a key position. But we're also going to get a quarterback. I don't know if we're going to get a linebacker in the draft. But there's other positions that we're going to get that are going to help improve this team. So, I look at this as addition by subtraction in terms of those trades. And throughout the course of this season, hopefully you guys will get to see the transition of what this team was into what this team is going to be moving forward. Let's see. Ouch, not knowing which rookie quarterback you want to draft. Scary. Well, that statement's not correct because I do know which rookie quarterback I want to draft. I just don't know if I'm willing to draft them where I have the 12th pick in the draft. I know there's a couple quarterbacks. There's a few quarterbacks that I would be completely okay with running this organization for the foreseeable future. I just don't know if I want to use the 12th overall pick on any of them. Not when I could address other areas of need. And certainly there's no area of need greater than the quarterback. I understand that. But there are other positions where there might be a greater drop-off in talent from one guy to the next than there are at the quarterback position. Right? Like there are some really good quarterbacks out there that have a ton of reloads stacked up. So even if they don't come into the league at a 77 or 78 overall, and they come into the league at a 73 or a 74 overall, it's only a matter of time before they start, earning those upgrades in their overall because of the reload boosting and also because of the natural progression in XP. So I do know, I've got my short list of quarterbacks, but I'm also open-minded. Look, I've said this before and I will say it again. If a scenario unfolds where I decide that I'm not taking a quarterback at 12, and then when I pick again at 23 and 29, if the quarterbacks that I would be willing to turn the team over to are no longer available, I'm not taking one just for the sake of taking one. Like, I'm not reaching on a quarterback simply because the general perception of everyone out there is that I have to. Right? Like, if the situation arises and the guy that's number 1 on my list is available, great. Lock it up. If the guy that's number 2 on my list is available, great. Lock it up. But again, I'm not taking a quarterback simply because as of right now, the only quarterback on the roster is a 71 overall in Caleb Brown. Caleb Brown's also 25 years old. So if I wanted to, I could use Caleb Brown as my placeholder. Right? Like you saw the question earlier. Could I have used Chumlee as a placeholder? Yeah, sure. I can also use Caleb Brown as a placeholder for 1 year and draft the quarterback next year. When I draft a quarterback, I want the quarterback to get playing time right away because I want them to have a fast track for progression. There it is. Nope, no credit. No credit whatsoever. So just word to everyone out there. It does not matter if you win your division. It does not matter if you make the playoffs. It does not matter if you humiliate Frankie every single time you play him because you win on a last second, fourth quarter Hail Mary and overtime field goal. None of that matters. All that matters is you get out of the first round in the postseason. And I get it. I would like a little bit of credit for being rookie GM coming in, winning the division, and then repeating. But I get it. Doesn't do you any good if you can't get out of the first round. Now, look, everyone knows how I got bounced from the first round the last 2 seasons, and they were both crazy comebacks. Both of those games, we had a lead in the fourth quarter, and it looked like we were winning the game. And suddenly we didn't. And that's heartbreaking, and it's frustrating. 2 years ago, it was a interception. Jason DePape had an interception in the end zone with less than a minute left to seal the game against the London Black Knights. London Black Knights were down by 7 with like 20 seconds left in the game. Jason DePape picks the ball off in the end zone, and they call defensive pass interference. London Black Knights get the ball on the 1 yard line, touchdown. We go to overtime. They win the coin toss. We never even get the ball. If this were the NFL, they would have changed the rule. We go to overtime. We never get the ball. The Black Knights go down the field and win the game. The NFL literally changed the rule so that what happened to me 2 years ago doesn't happen ever again. And I get it. And that's part of the reason why a guy like Chumlee is no longer on this roster. He wasn't going to get me not just out of the first round, into the conference championship game. And no matter what pieces, I just don't see it. By the time Chumlee was able to get this team to that point, the pieces that were in place to make sure that the all-around team was good enough to get to that point were going to be regressing and weren't going to be there anymore, right? Like offensively, Damani Manuel and Anthony Fry are young. By the time Damani Manuel's already there, let's say it, and Anthony Fry's close. And this time next year, he'll probably be there. But then guys on the defensive side of the ball are going to be regressing. And Buck Ulbrich is possibly going to start regressing, right? Like I had to make a choice now because otherwise the choice was going to be made for me. And if I let the choice be made for me, then I'm not going to get that much in return. So I made the bold moves now to maximize the return. I think the return for Chumlee was fantastic. And we'll see how it plays out on the field. I think the Chumlee return was great. And I also think that the AJ Pestuk return was great. I would have loved to have gotten a first round pick and Gabe Gales, but I didn't. I got a second round pick next year. And I also swapped second round picks this year. So I pick 7th in the second round. That was the pick that I had gotten from the Huskies rather than picking 23. Right. So I moved up 16 spots in round 2 and just watch in a week, you're going to see how valuable 16 spots are from 2.7 to 2.23. I think you're going to be looking at that window of talent and that window of draft, and you're going to realize just how big of a trade it is for us to get from 23 to 7. And then obviously the second round pick next year from the Huskies, and maybe they're really good this year, and that's a late second. I don't know. I don't trust the Huskies to be all that great this year. I think they're in a very difficult division. And I know that they made some additions, but I don't think that they're the front runner to win the division. And if they don't win the division, I think that they have a hard time getting into the playoffs still. And if they do get into the playoffs, I think they get into the playoffs as a wild card, as a back end team. But I think that there's just as good a chance that they are one of those first teams out. One of the very first teams, like the first teams to not get in, the best teams to not get in the playoffs. I think the Toronto Huskies could very easily be that team. I would not be surprised if at the end of next season, we looked at the ARC conference and we saw that the Toronto Huskies were the best team to not get in. And I think that's a realistic possibility. And so to be able to get two of those draft picks and also get a linebacker, obviously not as good as AJ Pestock, but to be able to get a starting caliber linebacker, sign me up. Because the alternative was I was going to get through half the season and be forced to trade him at the deadline, or I was going to keep him the entire season, and then I was going to lose him to free agency because I wasn't going to re-sign him for what he was asking. Poor Cowboys fans understand what it's like to be a Miners fan. Listen. I might not get a lot of respect for winning the division for 2 years in a row, but how dare you compare the Sacramento Miners to the Dallas Cowboys? The Cowboys went, 15 years without even making it to the playoffs? I'm pretty sure Jimmy Garoppolo has more playoff wins than the Dallas Cowboys organization in the last. Since Jimmy Garoppolo has been in the NFL, he has more playoff wins than the Cowboys organization. I think he has more playoff. As a matter of fact, I think Jimmy Garoppolo has more playoff wins than the Dallas Cowboys even have appearances in the last 15 years. Compare us to the Dallas Cowboys. How dare you? It's an insulting take. And here it is right here. It's tough to get through the ARC North with the Bulls, Cougars, and Aviators. And that's my point. Can I envision a scenario where the Toronto Huskies are the best team in the ARC to not make the playoffs? Absolutely. You look at those teams, the Bulls, Cougars, and Aviators. You think it's a foregone conclusion that the Toronto Huskies are going to win that division? I don't. I don't even think it's close. Especially because, one, the Aviators, I believe the Aviators had the best record in the ARC last year. Or 2 years ago, I'm sorry. 2 years ago, they had, I believe, the best record in the ARC. Last year, they weren't quite as good. Okay, fine. But they also have a young, developing mega talent at quarterback. The Cougars are good every year. They're never going to finish last in that division. And the Bulls, who I believe had finished last in the division 2 years ago, they go out and they sign Coach Baxter. So now they've got a user coach. And guys, I'll just tell you, teams that have a user coach typically have an advantage over the course of a season, when it comes to making the playoffs. Maybe on any given Sunday, a user coach team can lose to a generic coach team. Yes. But over the course of a season, look at the playoffs. Look at the playoff bracket from last year. Look at the playoff bracket from 2 years ago. Teams that make the playoffs, I would argue 80 to 85% of them are user coach teams. I think there was a total of, 14 teams that make the playoffs. So I want to say there was maybe 5. I mean, it's obviously not 85%, but I think there were 4, maybe 5 teams that were a generic team that made the playoffs. So absolutely, it is tough to get through the ARC North. I think that the ARC North might be the hardest division in the RFL, not just the ARC. I think the ARC North might be the most difficult division to win in the entire RFL. This is just the dumbest take I've ever heard in my life. You want to bring out the Colin Coward in me. Okay, let's do it. You bring out the Colin Coward in me. This team right here is not winning the Super Bowl. Mainly because the Super Bowl doesn't exist in the RFL. It's called the Relo Bowl. So do yourself a favor. Send an email to get access to the Discord so you can get yourself educated, because the Super Bowl doesn't exist in the RFL. Try again, filthy doe, you filthy animal. All right, who's got next? Is the ARC North the division with the most user coaches, teams with it being 3 user coaches? I believe so. The ARC East has 2, the Bulldogs and the Sentinels. The ARC West has the Voyagers, the Riverhogs, and the Red Dragons. So the ARC West has 3: Voyagers, Riverhogs, Red Dragons. The Pioneers are not. And then the ARC North, and then the ARC South has we just have 2, myself and Frankie. I believe. Did we lose? I'm not sure if we lost the Armadillos coach. I'm not sure if he's still around, if he left. I do believe, though, that the ARC is significantly more user represented than the NRC. I mean, I just named off 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, I believe 10 or 11 user coaches in the ARC. I don't believe there's that many in the NRC. I don't think there's 20 overall user coaches. So on the ARC side, there's 10 or 11 of them. So yeah, the ARC in general is difficult. It's not easy. And it's why I made the moves I made, because I just don't feel this team was going to win a Relo Bowl. Not with AJ Pestock leaving to free agency and getting nothing in return. And then on top of it, with Chumley at quarterback. He had superstar dev. He lost it. So he was 27 years old, and he had just lost superstar dev and went back to star dev. I said, I'm out. I'm sorry. It's a no for me, dog. Like, I can't have that in my locker room. I can't have you throwing interceptions late in the fourth quarter to give the team a chance down by 10 to come back and beat us in overtime. I can't have that. So you make moves. You make moves like Olajuwon. That's what we do. What else we got? Yeah, only championship they can win, because it's definitely not the Relo. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of bowl the Barons are winning. I don't want to know. Let's keep it PG here tonight. Who's the hard? Ooh, here's a good one. Guys, are you gonna let Seawill just take control of all the good questions tonight, or what? Like, somebody come up with something good. This is a good one. Who is the hardest coach to coach against? I'm going to be honest. I don't know that I don't think I've really had an opportunity to answer that question with any degree of confidence or certainty. And I say that because I've played Frankie 4 times now, and I've beat him 3 times. I would like to say that Frankie is the most difficult, because we go back and forth quite a bit, because we're division rivals and we have that kind of bitter rivalry. But at the same time, I beat him 3 of the last 4. So maybe it's not that difficult to play against him. Maybe I figured out a way. I will say I was not looking forward to last year. I wasn't looking forward to going against the Bulldogs. I do not like playing Coach Reed. I don't like his running back situation. I think that Matt Whedon is arguably one of the most underrated I'm not even going to say underrated running backs. I'm going to say he's one of the most underrated offensive players in the entire league. And I think when you look at him on paper and when you look at just his attributes, you don't think you're going to get run over. I remember, planning. I remember the week ahead for that game, and I had watched and I had seen him play, not for 1 second thinking that this guy is going to be the reason why we lose this game. This guy is going to be the reason why we get lit up. And it's what happened. I remember going into the Bulldogs game last year thinking to myself, this team is undefeated. I believe they were undefeated. Maybe they had one loss. And I remember thinking to myself, we can beat Timmy Merritt. And I'm not worried about Matt Whedon being the reason why we lose. And Matt Whedon was 100% the reason why we lost. And I believe Chumlee threw 2 interceptions. So there's always that. "2023 is our year." Our year to what? Put marinara and Parmesan on your fried dough? Like what? 2023 is our year to what? It ain't going to the Reload Bowl. 2023 is your year to pick 3rd overall in the draft? Actually, no, because that's 2022. Because that's how good your team was. What player do you always have trouble playing against? God, let me see. I don't know. That's a really good one. Again, it's one of those things where, having only been in the league 2 years, it's hard for me not to pick guys from my division because I've seen them 4 times, whereas a lot of these other teams I've possibly never even played. In the case of the Riverhogs, I haven't played the Riverhogs. In the last 2 years, we haven't played them. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Throw some names out there. Who have we played against? So obviously we played the teams in the ARC South. Let me look at this. I didn't like going against the Brooklyn Bulls only because they had Dariantre Machiavelli after I traded him to them. The good news is, while he played well for them last year, we held him in check. He didn't have that great of a game against us. Yeah, Cam Jones is a good one. Let me see. The London Black Knights. I'll just be honest. There's nobody on the London Black Knights that I'm worried about. I was a little bit worried about DWJ and the Sentinels, but we played pretty well. We won the regular season game, lost the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, I think Wheaton for the Bulldogs is up there. And I mean, at this point, I guess, what the easy answer is for me? What player do you always have trouble playing? Well, I guess this isn't the answer to that question. I'm going to answer this question a different way. What player do I not want to go against? Chumlee. I don't want to go against him because in my head, we play him twice and we're going to beat him twice. That's in my head. That's why I didn't have a problem trading him to a division opponent. And I felt like I got the best return by trading him to a division opponent. in other conversations I was having, I wasn't getting that same return for Chumlee. So in my head, we play Chumlee twice and we win both games. However, is there a small part in the way back of my brain that is a little bit concerned that Chumlee comes into Sacramento and throws 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and we get absolutely waxed? I think the fear of that happening and the backlash and the torment and fallout for that coming to fruition is enough to make me a little bit uneasy about playing against Chumlee. We've got a Briley burner in here. Guys with their burners. Coach, I like this. Is this really Briley? Can we confirm that this is Austin Briley? This is his burner account? Who are we drafting, coach? Who are we drafting? You're not on the team. You're not we. Who am I drafting? The Sacramento Miners? Who are they drafting? At quarterback? I'm pretty sure Austin Briley just ran the combine, and I don't think he weighed in at 394 pounds at the age of 72. So we, the Sacramento Miners, will almost certainly be drafting a quarterback, yes. But if this is you, Austin Briley, you better cut back on the fried dough and cheeseburgers and maybe eat a salad. Hit the combine a couple more times, because that 385-pound frame on a 72-year-old body ain't going to cut it in the RFL, son. No wonder why you got 63 awareness. You're 80 years old. Okay. All right. There we go. I'm sure you guys will have a little fun with that one. Yeah, I like that Will Stern guy. You know what's funny is I took an extremely long, hard look at Will Stern's combine. I don't think this is a hidden fact here. I'm a Florida State fan. I live in Florida. I live just outside Tampa. I grew up a Florida State fan. Even though I grew up in Massachusetts, I grew up watching Bobby Bowden, Warwick Dunn, Brad Johnson, Peter Warwick. Like, I grew up watching those guys. I was a Florida State fan. So, guys like Vince Wayne's at wide receiver, Amari Bowen at running back. Like, I look at those guys and I want to disagree with a lot of people. And Will Stern is the worst quarterback in the college series. I don't think he was the worst quarterback in the college series last year. I think Ryan Kopacek at LSU was. But I do think that Will Stern is pretty bad. That being said, right now there's only one quarterback on our roster. So is it possible that I take a quarterback somewhere in the first or second round, and then I take another lottery ticket just to, keep the bench warm in the 6th round? It's possible. And at that point, if I know that I've got my franchise quarterback in round 1 or early round 2, well, then I don't really care who my 3rd string quarterback is, because Caleb Brown is going to be the backup if I go that route. And so if Caleb Brown is the backup, would I draft Will Stern simply because he's a 3rd string quarterback and because he went to Florida State and because maybe, just maybe, there's a chance that he could do something good in the RFL and prove all of you guys wrong? And would I like to be the person and the reason why maybe, just maybe, that happened? Yes. Yes is the answer to that question. So you're saying there's a chance, in my best Lloyd Christmas voice. Cam Baker, no shot. No shot what? What are we saying no shot? No shot that that we draft Will Stern? He's not good. No, you're right. He's 100% not good. Ain't no way you're pulling that off. Pulling off that Will Stern could be good. I get it. Well, it would never happen because the scenario where Will Stern ends up on the Miners roster is I took him in the 6th round, right? I don't have a 7th round pick. I have pick 6.03 and 6.23. I think I have the 3rd and the 23rd pick in the 6th round. The only scenario where Will Stern is on this roster is I took him at 6.23, and it's because I would rather have him than pick up a 3rd string quarterback in free agency or roll the dice with only carrying 2 quarterbacks. So yeah, there's probably a greater chance that I only carry 2 quarterbacks than I draft Will Stern. And that said, in the 6th round, I'm going to be honest with you. Some of you guys are going to be really disappointed, I think. And I'm not afraid to be the bearer of bad news. I'm not afraid to be the reason why wow, I guess, yeah, people said that might happen. There's some guys that are going to be 6th round pick. There's some guys that are not going to be thrilled with where they get drafted. I think it was Smitty, you're in the chat. Mitchie, I see you out there. I believe it was Fontenez, right? Wasn't it Joseph Fontenez last year who literally got picked? Smitty will probably deny this. He literally got picked because people liked him and they liked his commitment and dedication and his activity in the league, but he sucked. He wasn't good. And it was like middle of the 6th or early 7th round. And literally there was a chant. Now, there wasn't actually a chant that you could hear verbally, but there was a chant going on in the comment section during the broadcast of the draft. And it went something like this. Let's pick Fontenez. That was happening in real time. It was as if people were watching the ticker at the bottom of the screen, looking at the teams that were coming up next and begging them to take Joseph Fontenez because we all wanted to see his name get called. And here, like, you think I'm making this up? You think I'm making this up? Mitchie was there. He knows. Again, I told you, Smitty might deny it. He might say, no, he was a good scheme fit for the whatever team took him with whatever pick in the late 6th, early 7th round. Yeah, it's a great scheme fit. A little extra butter is a great scheme fit for my tub of popcorn too. But, come on. Fontenez was a crowd favorite. And so could I envision a scenario where there's a quarterback like that is on the Miners next year? Absolutely. Absolutely. Cam Baker, I don't think you're going to have to worry about people chanting, let's pick Cam Baker in the late 6th, early 7th round. Just going to throw that out there. I will not be selecting you because I just don't have the need. But you know what? If you were there at 6.03, I probably would. Pecan, that's an awesome chant. Yeah, it's not that awesome of a chant if it's your name that they're chanting, right? Let's go Pecan. Is that what you want to hear? Is this what you want? Let's go Pecan late in the 6th round? Or are you going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm still here in the 6th round. I'm so much better than that guy. I'm so much better than that guy. Oh my God, my hour and a half long highlight video is so much better than that guy's. Gotcha. Dude, the highlight video would be just as good if you cut it to like 10 minutes. That's all I'm saying. That's it. That's all. you know? Listen, I got gray hairs in this beard, okay? I ain't got time to watch your hour and 20-minute highlight tape where you literally showed every catch you made. No time. No time. All right, guys, I'm going to get you out of here in a couple minutes. Last chance to get a few questions in. If you have any questions on the combine, any questions on the schedule, again, I will throw the schedule back up here. Here's what the 2023 schedule looks like. So it's not going to be easy. One, it's not going to be easy because the roster is different, and it's certainly different at key positions, which, I am not unaware of. Like, I get that. I know that. So realistic expectations for the season, not anything super crazy. Would love to get back to the playoffs. But if we don't, I think it's because of this sort of, redevelopment of assets, if you will. It's sort of, I'm not going to call it a youth movement, but it kind of is, I guess, a little bit of a youth movement, getting rid of some of those older guys. What is the board on the wall in the back of you? So over my right shoulder, which is what you're looking at the left, that is a standings board. So I have the entire RFL, ARC, and NRC. I have each team represented on a magnet board, and I will be moving them. I'll be honest with you. I did this for last year, and I realized it was a lot more tedious and cumbersome trying to constantly the chalk that I got. It's not as easy to just write it and then wipe it off. And so I actually put up like 1 week, and then I was like, I'm not doing this. This is going to be a pain. I'm not going to do this every single time, because the amount of, after 5 or 6 weeks, the chalkboard would have looked like a giant white piece of dust because the chalk was difficult to erase every single time. So it is a standings board, basically. I'm going to try it again this year, see if I can do something about the chalk, maybe make it a little bit easier so it's not such a pain in the hind to keep that updated. But that's what that is. It's a standings board. Nope. It wasn't an accident. It's just the way that, it's the way that it is. Accept it. You don't have to like it. Okay? But it's okay. We'll all be here. We'll all be here for you in the end. You can pick third overall. You can go out and get that stud offensive lineman to try to give yourself a running game. I'm developing a rivalry with the Barons, and I'll never play against them because they'll never make the Reload Bowl. Anyway. All right. Oh, you know what I did want to do? For those of you that didn't get a chance, I wanted to give them their due. See what this looks like on the screen here. But the other schedules that came out so far. So the Cougars did announce their schedule. The Explorers announced their schedule. And the Riverhogs put out their schedule as well. So the sizing and the format isn't going to be perfect for the screen here. But the Cougars, here's what the Cougars schedule looks like. So they've got, obviously, the Miners, the Aviators back to back. That's an interesting one. Obviously, the week 3, what's that? Week 3 is a force win. So they have week 2 RFL against the Aviators, week 4 RFL against the Aviators. Then they've got the Huskies, Celtic Tigers, Huskies again, Bulldogs, Bulls. I'll be honest with you guys. This is a gauntlet. This is a tough schedule because forget about the conference for the Cougars, right? I mean, forget about the division because the Cougars division is difficult. We all know it. So they have to play the Huskies twice, the Aviators twice, and the Bulls twice. So that's tough. But then you look at their non-divisional opponents. They got to play Houston, who could have one of the best offenses in the league, is likely going to be a favorite to win the ARC and go to the Reload Bowl. You've got the Bulldogs, who are clearly a front runner in the ARC to get to the Reload Bowl. I mean, if you look at you could even say, again, Orlando, playoff team. Sacramento Miners, playoff team. I think there's only one game on the Cougar. No, the Bulls didn't make it. Oh, and the one in Black Knight. So there's 4 games on their schedule against non-playoff teams. And 2 of those games are only non-playoff teams because they're in the division, and not everyone in the division can make the playoffs. So very difficult schedule here for the Chicago Cougars. I have a feeling it's going to be a very difficult schedule for everyone in the ARC North, but looking at that one there, that's tough for Rob and this upcoming season. The Explorers put out their schedule. For those of you that didn't get a chance to see it, give you a little bit of an idea as to how this works. So if it says win, that's not him being overly confident and arrogant. Those are automatic wins. Those are the auto-generated wins because they're against NFL opponents. So Steamers, Condors, Monarchs, T-Birds, Gunners, Desperados, Barons. Week 8, that looks like a blowout win. Week 12, yeah, just mail that one in. Thunderbirds, week 18. So that's probably going to be must-see prime time. Who knows? Maybe that's for the division. Week 18 on the road at Toronto against the Thunderbirds. That's going to be a big one. And then the Riverhogs also put out their schedule. Here's the Riverhogs schedule as well. So you can take a look there. I'll go ahead and last chance, look through the comments, see if there's anything before I get you guys out of here. Rapid fire. What's going on, Arthur Almond Arnett? Good to see you, bud. I can see the Explorer. So back to the Explorers. Coach Q, I can see the Explorers only losing 1 to 2 games. Yeah, I mean, look, I could see them only losing 1 to 2 games, and that would be 1 or 2 more than they lost last year. I'll pull back the Explorer schedule here and get rid of the Riverhogs. I could see that happening, but I could also envision a scenario where they lose 3 or 4. I mean, going undefeated is tough. I certainly think that they're going to make the playoffs. I certainly think that they might not win the division. So I'm not going to, I'll guarantee, the only thing I'm going to guarantee is that the Columbus Explorers make the playoffs. I think DJ could get hurt in week 1 and be out for the season, and they would still make the playoffs. But, saying that a team's only going to lose 1 game or 2 games, like that just seems so ridiculous to predict. Yes, it happened. I get that. But go back to this time last year. Nobody predicted that. No one would have predicted that. It seemed outlandish and ridiculous to actually think that somebody was going to run the gauntlet. And they did. And then on top of that, they did something that not even the 1979 Miami Dolphins have done. Because back then it wasn't an 18-game schedule, 18-game season, 18 weeks, 17 games, sorry. Dolphins didn't have that. The Columbus Explorers did. The Columbus Explorers are literally better than the 2022 Columbus Explorers. Have a better claim to fame than the greatest, what many would consider to be. I don't, because I think the Patriots that lost the Super Bowl were better than that Dolphins team, but I digress. The Explorers have a higher claim to fame than that Miami Dolphins team because they did the whole entire thing, but they had an extra game in there. And that's awesome. And you can never take that away from Bill. I just don't foresee it happening again. What's I got here? I guarantee that week 18 game against the T-Birds is going to have a lot riding on it. Yeah. I mean, like I said, that's possibly for the division. If not for the division, I mean, someone's going to be affected by playoff seeding in that game. We're not going to be watching that game thinking to ourselves, oh man, this is the difference between the 12th pick in the draft and the 15th pick in the draft. That's not going to happen. That will not happen. Pecan being ridiculous. The Voyagers would have won if they had Eli Manning. The Patriots would have won if the Giants didn't have Bubblicious in their back pocket. All right, I think we're good here. So last chance, guys. We'll give you a minute if you have anything, but appreciate you tuning in. This obviously went longer than I thought, but I know that you guys don't get a chance to ask me questions and get my perspective and point of view as often as you did during the college series in the college season. So, I have no problem going a little bit longer than planned. If you do have any other questions, feel free to hit me up on Discord. You can find me at MinersRFL on Twitter, at MinersRFL on Instagram. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I think we're close. I haven't really done much lately, but I know we're up over 125. So the sooner we can get to that 150 mark, awesome. And if you guys have any questions on anything, feel free to reach out either Twitter, Instagram, or on the Discord channel. And stay tuned. Again, I don't know for sure if there's going to be an RFL podcast tonight. I haven't seen an official announcement, but that might not be happening. Let me see. Last chance. Is that? Now look. Oh, everybody look. Probably wants to show up on his non-burner. Love it. All right, guys. Appreciate you checking in tonight. And look forward to the 2023 season. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Take care, everybody.